Okay, this is a follow-up video about using Mach1 spatial system with Bitwig. Bitwig isn't a multi-channel door, and by that I mean you can't transport or route multi-channel audio, i.e. more than stereo, through the door or even out of it. And likewise, VST plugins or multi-channel VST plugins are typically restricted in that Bitwig won't allow you to route multi-channel audio into a multi-channel audio plugin. You can get the multi-channels out as a kind of like I think they call them output chains, and so we have to make use of that in order to create a kind of pseudo multi-channel bus routing environment. Essentially, the Mach1 spatial system is a panner within a 3D space, and each panner would be placed on the end of a track or device chain in Bitwig, and similarly with an effects track as well. And all that does is take the stereo audio and kind of maps it into the 3D space and feeds these 8 channels. In Bitwig, these 8 channels are basically simulated by creating 8 output channels from Bitwig. I think they call them buses, but it's essentially this. So we've created 8 output channels to represent our spatial environment, and using Jack audio, we can take those 8 channels and route them into our monitor plugin, and that was what just opened a minute ago there. So this track playing now is passing out of Bitwig through this monitor. The monitor is set to a stereo mode at the moment to record, and so that's going to my Apogee device for playback, and a copy is going to OBS, which is what you're seeing here, just so I can record both my voice and the Bitwig audio. So that's kind of the routing in terms of the operating system. The reason we need to have this monitor VST outside of Bitwig, it's running in a program called Savvy Host, which is just a standalone VST host. It's by Herman Sieb, and it's free. So it just allows a really simple, easy one plugin to be launched, and that's all it does. And it accepts the Jack connections as well. So it's pretty easy to get it hooked up. Now the limiting factor is when we've got a track. So this track here, chords track. This is essentially just like any other track. There's MIDI inside there, just playing, and this is passing through some devices, and in this case, just playing polysynth, which is one of the Bitwig instruments. And I wrap all of that in a chain just to keep it separate from this device, which is our panner. So this is the Mach1 spatial panner, and you can see within the panner I've exposed the multiple output chains. So this is essentially these 8 channels here. Unfortunately, Bitwig seems to want to try and group them into stereo pairs. So this first one's a stereo pair, 1 and 2. This one's a mono pair, 3. Another mono pair, 4. This is a stereo pair, 5 and 6. and the last one is stereo pair 7 and 8. I'm not quite sure why it does that, but to get around the fact that it's not giving us the mono channels that the plugin has coming out of it, we can split the channels. Each one's got its own split, and then within that split, we use a hardware effects device, which is kind of the only way in Bitwig that you can send audio out of a track and then kind of bring it back into itself. If you try to do that just using the normal input and output, it won't let you select itself, basically, because it's trying to prevent feedback loops. So the only way you can do it is with the hardware effects, and essentially what that's doing is routing the audio out of the door and then back in again. And we make use of that. And going back to our eight output buses, these are our main outputs. We can set each of these split channels to output to the corresponding channel that then goes onto the monitor. So here we got the left is M1, the right is M2, and we've got M3, etc., until we've got that last stereo pair there, ending on 8. So that's all of our 8 channels passing through this monitor. And if I just change the field of view, you should hear some changes. Okay, you can see the plugins are linked, so every panner instance is kind of controlled by the monitor. This is more for like a head tracking or whatever, but that's quite a neat little feature. So that's essentially how you get a track converted, essentially, or panned from 2-channel stereo to the 8-channel Mach1 spatial format, so that it can then pass to the monitor. And the monitor's outside the door because the door doesn't support 8-channel inputs, basically. So what we'll do, I've got another track here which is a ride symbol. If I just override the no output and chuck it out to one of the sides. Actually, I don't think we're going to listen to that. Yeah, there we go. So it's just a MIDI, another MIDI clip. In this case, it literally is just one held note. And in terms of the devices, again, I've put it inside a chain device. It's just going through a note repeater, some humanization, and then onto this little VST synthesizer, which has got some drum sounds in it. But obviously I've got no panner there. That's the panner for the chord track. So you don't need to create this whole kind of pseudo bus from scratch. What we can do, if we just copy this whole device here, we should be able to paste that into here. Not sure if that's gone inside. Yes, it's gone inside. I don't know why it does that, but that needs to be on the outside of the plugin chain. And there you can hear the hear those ride symbols now. Just close that chain again. So it's copied all the settings across, and it's exactly the same because every panner is the same format. And if I open up the panner, we can rotate those around the field. So that's essentially all there is to it. You'll build a whole piece of music based on that kind of principle. The other challenge is effects. you might be able to hear on this chords track there's a little bit of reverb. We've actually got just as a normal send effect track, I've got Air Windows Galactic, which is just a nice clean reverb sort of sound, and in the normal way you can send to that reverb in the normal way. Now obviously this is a stereo reverb, and similarly to the audio tracks, the music tracks, we have to put these into an effects layer in order to break them out into those 8 channels from the stereo. So we've got stereo coming in here, stereo coming in here, but then we're starting to split it out now. So I've actually got two panners in here, because I'm actually using two kind of copies of this output. So on the first one I've got a panner, and this is just panning the reverb to the front of the room, and then we've got a second one which is panning it to the rear of the room. And this is just so you can get some immersive kind of reverb going. You can go far more complex than this. It's just the simplest way to show a kind of quad sort of reverb. And if I just take that up so we can really hear it. If I just bring these forward and backwards, you should hear some changes. Okay, so similarly to the music tracks, we have to split each output of the main panner into the 8 outputs. We go to M1, M2, M3, etc., etc. That's pretty much all there is to it. You're really just taking advantage of this hardware effects to get around the fact that Bitwig doesn't allow multiple channels, and it doesn't allow audio to be routed back into itself. I think that's pretty much it. The only thing to note is the tracks have to be kept at unity gain, basically because we're not sending anything to the outputs. You'll see that every single output is no output because we're not using Bitwig's native audio routing, because it can't take more than stereo. But to get around that, we use this chain. You could probably use a tool as well, but this will allow you to turn up and down in the normal way. And if you wanted to automate, obviously that's gonna come up here. Likewise, if I adjust the gain, that will switch to gain. So it's not a big deal, other than you wouldn't be able to use the track faders. It's not possible, but it's not the end of the world. So yeah, that's pretty much how I would go about it. Well, that's how I have gone about it. There might be better ways. If you think of any better ways, then I'll try them out. But yeah, that's basically allowing multi-channel immersive audio using Mach1 Spatial. Mach1 Spatial can transcode to a lot of different formats. So it's probably one thing to look at Mach1 Spatial as a intermediate kind of system, which you can then take on to Dolby Atmos or FB360 or Ambisonics or whatever. But yeah, anyway, hope this video is of interest and helps somebody. Leave some comments if you've got any ideas on how to improve the busing. Cheers, then.